Dear friends, welcome. My name is Denisas Kolomyckis, and today I would like to present you my theme, Body, the link between art and the society. Shortly about me. I've been graduate from National School of Arts in Vilnius, ballet section. I'm a professional ballet dancer. I've been working in New York with American godfather of avant-garde movies, Jonas Mekas, working with Lithuanian film director Šarūnas Bartas, working with different artists in Europe and presenting my works in different parts of the world. Now I'm in Georgia, just after the tour in Armenia, and directly from here I would like you to introduce to a couple of things. What does this performance art? How do we understand the body? What is the audience in the performance? What is the play in a camera? And share with you some examples of performances which are done. I will start from performance art. The understanding of performance art very often is taken as a life art, or durational art, or time-based art. It is quite different from theater, and it's quite different from dance. The rule of the performance, mainly, it's considered three elements. It is the space, the body, which giving some kind of action, and the audience. Much performance was, and definitely is, explicitly politically motivated, aiming to change and to challenge, to dominate values and practices to respond to the social crisis. Different performance artists using different tools, different artists in general using different tools. Musicians are using a violin, a cello, guitar, piano, any other. Painters are using canvas, brush, colors. Writers are using text, paper, pen. The difference of these arts and performance art is that the tool which those art fields are using, most of the time they are not alive, and the artist with his old artistical potential needs to talk through this instrument to the audience. That means he needs to sacrifice the instrument, same as I will need to sacrifice a cup, computer, a chair. Performance, dance, theater, in this combination could be taken together, because the first tool which the artist is using is his own body. That means first element which is given for us to express our feelings, our emotions, to react to some kind of situations, to manifest. Performance art is difficult to define because it potentially combines so much media, including performance as a performance, including text, music, dance, architecture, sculpture, video, film, and multimedia. But also because it often aims to challenge categorization, exploring the expressive possibilities of combining diverse elements to produce new hybrids. Performance art is rejected their focus on representation, exploring the more direct possibilities of presentation. It displaced a conventional emphasis on the co-modified art object, concentrating instead on the transient artistic project. Performance art shifts the emphasis from the object to the event, simultaneously refocusing on the artist as a creator. The relationship of art to everyday life activity, the inferior event as art, and the very difficulty of documenting. Many performances done by performance artists are autobiographical monologues, some kind of explanation of the feelings understandings, positions. What does performance artists do feel and do want to express? It is a construction of the subject through everyday life activities, and especially for feminist artists, women's limited access to the public sphere and the right to speak in it. Would you know about the movements of LGBT and queers, feminists, lesbians? When people went out to the streets to talk about their rights, about the basic human rights, you can use many different tools how to express your position. Performance art and art in general could be one of the tools how to do it. Performance meanings. There are given 5 basic, simple meanings how to explain the performance. First could be that it's given a performance meaning to identify the live event of presenting something usually pre-prepared before an audience. This can be the presentation of any performing art, including theater, music, dance, circus, or martial art skills, happenings, improvised performances, and so on. The second meaning could be as a performance linked to describe all social behavior, including everyday behavior. This understanding gained currency in the mid to late 20th century, as scholars from philosophy to anthropology and sociology identified in social behavior that is seen as essential to performance. It demonstrates how it could help to enhance understandings of performances, practices, and effects through its own conception of relationships between activities and audience, space and time, process and product, activity and effect. The third meaning of performance might to achieve, as we might talk of sexual performance, or the performance of a car, or a company, or a globalization, or sports, Olympic athletes. While this particular deployment of the term might seem to have little direct relevance to performance, in the context of this companion, it is important to consider how its expansion and impact of ideas of power and knowledge might relate to other deployments. The use shifts focus from the process of performance to the outcome of the product, making not only a semantic shift but also an ideological one. For example, towards the values of capitalism. Fourth could be taken as a performance, and actually often taken and have been used as a synonym for performance art and body art, coming out of a history of fine art practices. Play for the rights of particular identity groups, such as women or lesbians, gay men, and a whole LGBT and queer community. It's also intentionally reinforce ideas of coherent identity, narrative, and representation in order to make political claims for the identities it represents. The fifth and the last might be taken that performance to be discussed in the form of the constructive performance, distinguished primarily by its distinction from acting in theater, where most acting aims to achieve metric representations. This form from performance is usually at least partly presentational, working to challenge naturalistic characterization and narration in order to question the apparent truths shown by representational forms. This mode of performance has a long history. For example, Dada, Bertolt Brecht, epic theater, but mostly it comes from the Expressionism. Just to comment on the last meaning of the performance, we could add that the challenge of the assumptions to receive the representational forms has produced a host of deconstructive and meta-theatrical performance strategies that foreground process, overproduct, interrogate in theatrical illusion, and resist offering stable or conclusive meanings. We do know that some performances which are happening in our society nowadays are very often taken as performances without meanings, performances without some kind of ideological background or personal background involved in it. And to talk more about the improvisational part of the performance, I would use example of dance techniques that are used in everyday life movement. The Marina Abramovich Balkan Baroque, where she is just simply cleaning, the Andy Warhol, who is eating a burger, Vito Conci, which is simply masturbating under the gallery floors while all the audience is walking above him, and they do know what is happening below. Like its close relationship to body art, performance art also deliberately explores the materiality of the performance body as an artistic medium, its physical limitation, fluids, and social significations. In this performance installation, Marina Abramovich and Ulay stand nude, flanking the entrance to a museum. Abramovich describes the piece. The public entering the museum has to pass sideways through the small space between us. Each person passing us has to choose which one to face. The collaboration of the artists is to create a performance piece in which they completely nude flank the entrance to the Galleria Comunale d'Arte Moderna in Bologna, Italy. Visitors wanting to enter the museum are forced to squeeze through their bodies. This piece focuses on artists. It is meant to draw attention to the participants in the performance. While watching the video of performance, it is not the blatant and unabashed nudity that captures one's attention. Instead, it is the reaction of the public to the situation they find themselves in that catches their eye. Each visitor to the museum must make two important decisions. First, he must decide whether or not to enter the museum. Second, he must decide which figure to face when passing through the entrance. The taboo nature of nudity makes these decisions seem critical. Do I want to squeeze my way past two nude bodies? If I do, whom should I face? These are the questions that are posed to the visitors in the line to enter the museum. We have the same in our language, in all of the languages. When we do talk about some kind of subject, like chair, one person might imagine it with 3 legs, one person might imagine it with 4 legs, one person might imagine it as a bar chair. We might talk about the table or any other material things. We can talk about the family members, people, mother. One person might imagine mother as a saint. One person might imagine it as a prostitute. Might imagine it as that who loves and who will never leave. About God, would you know the picture? How does the Jesus look? Because someone created it. It's with a beard, long hair. So all these perceptional things, and each person understanding about the things through his own personal background, are the same in the performance. And all the symbolical things like our body language, which is given for you. Might give you some places to, or some symbols to play with it and to react to them. For Aristotle, the audience identified with the tragic hero and experienced catharsis, or purgation of difficult feelings. After the show, take political action. I would like to give it as a question. Which kind of arts sublimes the political action after it? Who does create the art to push people to make some kind of decisions? Who is the audience, and which kind of audience is coming to different performances to react? We do know that different theater performances are given for audience just to entertain, when we're sitting and we're relaxed and we just want to spend those 2 hours for a good time of laughing, thinking, but not about those deep things. Always, the audience have the decision to choose where to go and to stay or not to stay or leave. But inside the audience is always happening invisible theater. Same as in performance art and in theater. Actors, people who are taking and doing the action, are using different tools. Scenography, again about the room, costumes, some kind of props. Same happening in the society, when people, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously, preparing themselves for the theater, to go out to the street, to meet the people. If the woman wants to seduce men, she will put a nice dress, put makeup, put some props. And why did I said that sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously? Because this example of seducing a man for a woman, definitely it could be the man seducing the woman, or the man, woman the woman, but it is already with the aim of something. In this example, seducing. So it is conscious decision to do it. Unconsciously could be just the theater play of invisible theater in the society or at home, where you just take the information from the person, and without thinking out how does this, you interact with it and you react to it. The powers of catharsis were fundamentally designed to transform not the audience but the performers. Rather, audience would be understood to mean and do shifts according to the changing ideas, not only what theater and performance are and how they make meaning, but also what community and identity are. Some works of performance or a video, or in general any kind of art, might be often illogical, dreamlike, sometimes menacing narratives and images. It externalized, otherwise represents feelings, and is experimented with dreams as both from a form and content. Some articulate it as a clear sense of social resistance, demonstrating some of the ways art could operate as anti-art, challenging contemporary artistic conventions. Jonas Mekas, Peace, Hare Krishna, captures the body of dancers dancing in the street of New York. Jonas Mekas, I live, therefore I make films. I make films, therefore I live. Life, movement, I make films, therefore I live. all the captured information is about the life and changing slides and pictures of things which are going, of people who are dancing, of people who are singing. Yoko Ono, cut piece. Yoko Ono coming on the stage and in a sitting position placing a pair of scissors in front of her and asking the audience to come up on the stage one by one and cut a portion of her clothing and take it. Instead of giving the audience what the artist chose to give, the artist gives what the audience chose to take. That is to say, you cut and take whatever part you want. Pinabausch, hand dance. Performers require enormous personal commitment. Often the works in her eyes, the risk and investment, same as the audience. Improvisation is a spontaneous invention of performance. Improvisation seems to hold out of possibility of escaping learned taboos, achieving freedom of expression, producing unexpected outcomes, and developing more democratic group practices. Learning through play improvisation as a tool for creativity stimulation, for its own and for devising performance. Koinskatsi. Music rated by Philip Glass. Glass highly recognized example of the minimalistic school of composition, which is characterized by heavily repeated figures, simple structures, and a tonal, also not in the traditional common practice sense of the word, harmonic language. Glass, one of the first composers to employ minimalism in the film scoring, paving the way of many future composers of that style. Same as in Jonas Meka's movies, the running images, one after the other, shows the way how the word is constructed. It's facing the consumerism, works, people, money, and time. Performance art challenge institutionalism as much of fine arts. Performance is almost always temporary. It argues against universalism and for the value of seeing art's meanings as not only site-specific but also time-specific. Marina Abramovich's piece Nude Skeleton. Both are filmed sideways. The living and dead body are almost perfectly aligned. The school and Abramovich had looked to the same direction. The ribs of the skeleton press upon her chest. Her breathing is accentuated and amplified. The skeleton's spine, ribcage, and head follow the movements while Abramovich inhales and exhales. The artist's body and the skeleton are shown from different angles. More and more extreme close-up of their faces emphasize a harsh contrast between them. Nude skeleton is a simple looped image of Abramovich and the skeleton, lying quietly on the floor, visible from head to toe. A single, strong image presenting a more serene unity between life and death. I tried to start with the more theoretical part, but I understood that it's quite difficult. Why? Because it's way much easier to imagine that I'm not alone here. And I'm not talking with the camera, but I'm talking with someone. I cannot receive the feedback out of our conversation, but I can just think loudly and try to imagine that you do hear and understand. The situation when you need to play for the camera, it's way much different than the situation when you need to play for the audience. The audience is different theories definitely, but some of them just to share. One of them is that if the audience is not listening for you, you should make something that they would start to listen for you. Or the other theory is quite opposite. Just let for audience to make the perception. Let them imagine. It's quite opposite understanding about the audience. But in this case, when I do know that I am alone in this room, and when I do know that this video will be shown for you, I need to switch something and not make it very intimate, but to try to give you as much as I know. And it's quite hard, but let's try. body in the society means a lot. In the political actions which are happening even now, in Crimea, in Israel, in Brazil, definitely probably in even more countries, the body doesn't mean anything. Body is just body. And some politicians don't even give a heck for a body. But what is inside the body? The consciousness of understanding the things, the possibility to analyze the things and to be ready for an action. This is what we are strong of. Each of us have the right to choose. That's why probably you chose the right to be there where you are now and to listen for that what is happening now. The right to choose is way much bigger because you have the right to choose everything. Sometimes our right is put down, and this is a choice. Should we say yes for it or should we fight for it? Each decision which is made related to the people directly touch each of us. But not everyone takes the responsibility to speak or to make an action. The body is the first element to do the action, because we have a lot of ways how to do it. As we talked at the beginning, we might use the music, theater, text. We might use a performance, the movies, multimedia and internet. We might use not artistical skills, but we might be just the people who are talking about this, because we have voice, and we might shout about this. All of it, it's just about the decision. All of it, it's just about the choice. Which choice do you pick? And how do you want to talk about the things? It comes probably from our background and from our surrounding. How does the people make influence on us? Or how much do we let them make influence on us? But I will ask you to be open and to take all the information. And after this, after all these sessions, when people are talking with you and explaining what does this the body in the screen, or it is the body in general, to come for the action, to try to make something what would change, or would lead to some kind of change. All the changes and all the actions bring us personally and bring our friends or our surrounding to the point of consciousness, of understanding the things.